This episode is brought to you by BeWaterSmart.info. It may be fall, but it's still important to be water smart. Make sure your irrigation is off or adjusted for cooler, wetter weather. And did you know fall is a great time to plant your water-wise and drought-tolerant California natives? Planting now gets them established before the heat of the summer arrives. For a list of plants and more water-saving tips and tricks, visit BeWaterSmart.info.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. And tonight we're going to talk about California native plants. And with me is a guest, and I've had him on before. It is Brendan Wilce with the California Native Plant Society. He's the conservation program coordinator, but I will just say these are his opinions, and this is not going to be affiliated with California Native Plant Society, but just that's where you work and you know your stuff. And tonight I threw at you the topic of give me your top 10 favorite California native plants, and I have no idea what you're going to throw at me. So I'm interested and can't wait to get started. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Really happy to be here. I have to say it's really hard to even narrow this down to 10. And within some of the groups we're talking about, I could probably pick 10 top favorites within those. But yeah, more than happy to talk about some of my favorite native plants here tonight.
Do you have them ranked, or are you just going to throw them out in any order, or are you going to...
I'm going to start with a group that I think is like probably my favorite group of native plants. And then from there, it's going to be a little bit more luck of the draw in terms of the order.
Okay.
But the California buckwheats are one of my favorite groups of plants, and definitely one that was hard to land on a top favorite on. But I'm going with Eriogonum saxatile, the rock buckwheat. It's a really cool plant. So they are in the same family as your culinary buckwheat that soba is made from, also the same family as rhubarb, but a very different beast than either of those plants. They're really adaptable, very drought tolerant, and oftentimes they're found in pretty rough, rocky habitats or high alpine areas. So Eriogonum saxatile is found in the southern Sierra Nevada, and then there are a few populations in the coastal ranges also, but their texture, their foliage is really cool. They're these sort of fuzzy gray-green leaves, and they're just perfectly arranged with these spoon-shaped leaves and these perfect rosettes. They kind of look like they're from under the sea. But really awesome texture. The flowers are kind of nice too, but the evergreen foliage is truly spectacular on them.
It's one of those where the foliage is first and then the flowers are second, because some of the buckwheat flowers are what's, like the yellow ones, the sulfur yellow one, and then the rubescence, the pink one, the foliage is just like, but this one you're saying that's the other way. The foliage is the stunning part.
Definitely. And yeah, the sulfur buckwheat and your Channel Islands buckwheats have these great showy flowers and kind of nondescript foliage. But yeah, this one, they kind of, to me, almost look like a really delicate echeveria with these clusters of rosettes, and grow in really rocky habitats.
Do you think it's possible have you ever seen it growing in someone's yard? Do you think it'll make it into the horticulture trade, or is it one of these where the growing conditions are, you just can't duplicate it in a yard?
I'm really glad you brought that up. They are typically something that you wouldn't think of being a really adaptable plant to garden conditions. But a lot of the buckwheats, even those from really tough soil types, have actually shown to be really adaptable in garden conditions. This particular one is very few and far between. I've seen them available from a couple specialty growers. I think Grassroots Ecology had a crop of them a couple years ago. And then there's a little native plant nursery out east of Fresno that has stocked them before. But yeah, not something that is very commonly available, and definitely one of my side projects is trying to share plants with other native plant nurseries to try to get some of the more unique buckwheats more commonly available in the nursery trade, because they really seem to be adaptable. A lot of buckwheat species are found on really rough soils. Some are on like high calcium limestone outcrops, and then there are a lot of species on serpentine, which has actually led to a huge diversity of buckwheat species in California, and a lot of them are rare, being found in these little pockets of these really unique soil types, and even those species that you typically associate with those really kind of funky soils seem to be pretty adaptable to regular garden conditions.
Yeah, we have some growing, various ones at work. Some get huge. How big is this one? You said it's a little rosette.
It's a little one, probably 3 or 4 inches tall, and then slowly spreading to form a nice clump.
Okay. You didn't cheat. I expected you to just put all the Areogonums into one, but you went specific. You took the homework and you went with it.
No, yeah, favorite plant. I'm narrowing it down to the species level. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, this is a group of plants that if we wanted to have a follow-up conversation on buckwheats, we could pick 10 of those. I mean, we've got 117 species in California, 261 subspecies within those 117 groups, and then of those, 94 are considered to be rare, and that all comes down to being found on, like I said, those little pockets of those unique soil types.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, because I know we could probably, like you said, talk about each plant for quite a while, but let's move on. Just let's see what's next.
So that one was all about the foliage. We'll move on to big showy flowers for the next one. The Humboldt lily is one of my favorite lilies. California has lots of great lilies. Think of our fawn lilies, our fritillaries, our Mariposa lilies, all awesome plants. But the Humboldt lily is truly showy. They a little bit unique. A lot of people are more familiar with the leopard lily, which grows along streams and seeps with wet feet. The Humboldt lily is a dryland lily, so they're very drought tolerant. They're used to going completely dry in the summer months, and they are showy. The flowering stalks will get up to 8 feet tall, with a dozen or more flowers on a single stalk on mature plants. And they're your classic big lily flower, kind of reflexed petals, curving back around the stem of the flower. And they are deep orange and yellow with these great brown and maroon spots on them.
Is that Lilium Humboldt? Is it Lilium Humboldtii? Is that the?
That's right.
Okay. I have seen it. Yeah, no, it's stunning.
So they're kind of interesting that there are 2 main population blocks in California, but they're really far separated. The northern population is Sierra Nevada foothills from Butte County down to about Calaveras County. And that is Lilium Humboldtii, subspecies Humboldtii. And that one, the petals are pretty much pure orange with those speckles over them. And then they're found mostly in oak woodlands, some in mixed conifer forests. And then the Southern California population, plant size and overall habits pretty much exactly the same, but the tips of the petals have this sort of yellow, it looks like they've been dipped in yellow. And they're a lot of times found in foothills with chaparral habitat. So really kind of cool that there are these two distinct populations. The Southern California one is subspecies oscillatum, and the spots sort of land right where the orange transitions into the yellow, and both really stunning plants.
So it's summer dormant. So I'm trying to remember when I've seen them blooming. So they're not a winter bloomer though.
No, and despite being very drought tolerant, they actually grow and bloom into early summer.
Okay.
And then by late summer and fall, they're starting to go dormant. Okay. And then where a lot of our other lilies, like I mentioned, the Mariposa lilies and fritillaries tend to start growing their foliage over the winter and then will bloom in late winter, early spring, and into early summer. These guys don't start growing until the ground actually starts to warm up. So they've got a little bit different season than a lot of the other California lilies.
Have you seen this one commercially available?
There are a few people growing it.
Okay.
Probably the best place to get it is if you are living in Southern California and you can visit our friends over at the Theodore Payne Foundation. They often have a few plants available each year. And then there are some seed sources, but very few people are growing the Northern California form. Most of what I've seen is the Southern California variety.
And does it naturalize, or is it, because you don't really see big clusters, right? It's just a few plants here and there. So it's probably doesn't naturalize very well, or does
in the wild, I have seen some sort of patches and clumps of them, but they're very slow growing. If you had the right habitat, they would naturalize, and they may naturalize in the garden as long as you are very sparing with summer irrigation. They're pretty prone to rot if they get too much irrigation in the summer months. But they are well adapted to foothill climates, and I wouldn't be surprised if you could get away with growing them in the valley as long as you kept them dry and planted them with pretty sharp drainage.
Yeah, that's the key, is just cutting off that summer irrigation where.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've grown them in large pots too. Okay. And again, the trick there is to remember to stop watering that pot eventually, because they will rot out if you keep watering them.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, might have to add that to the collection at work. It's intriguing, and it's very doable with our South African bulbs to have grown along with them.
I may be able to share something with you. We can talk later about that.
We'll talk. Okay. Number 3.
So number 3 is another lily family plant, but a very different one. The fetid adder's tongue, lovely name for a plant. It's a Scoliopas bigelovii, kind of a unique genus of plants. It's the only Scoliopas that is in California. The only other Scoliopas species is Scoliopas hallii, and it's found in Oregon and actually pretty far down towards the California border. So anyone botanizing up in Northern California should keep their eyes out and see if we could add this other species as a California native as well.
I'm not familiar with this, or maybe I am, and describe it.
Worthwhile looking up. Anyone listening to this should definitely Google it. The foliage comes up during the winter and is kind of big broad leaves covered with these deep, dark maroon speckles. And then the flower itself is a creamy white flower with these jet black lines running across it. The flower almost looks like it's been tattooed with these little streaks running through it. And another really fun thing about this plant is the fragrance. One nursery that does grow it and occasionally has plants available, their catalog describes it as having the smell of wet dog and gym locker sort of all rolled up together.
Lovely.
And I don't think I could really describe it much better than that. Single plants, you really have to get your nose down there and to really appreciate that aroma. But some of my coworkers in the vegetation team say that you can tell when there's a big patch of these nearby because that smell will waft over and you know that they're around.
Wow.
The southernmost populations, I think, are on Mount Tamalpais, so not too far away for us to go visit if you wanted to go check them out. And then they run all the way up into Oregon.
And what kind of wet with leaves like that?
Yeah, damp understory habitats. They do go summer dormant and are pretty tolerant of summer drought, but it's nice that they're a little bit more tolerant of summer water when they're dormant and are a little bit more adaptable to regular garden conditions.
And is it it's a fibrous root system? Or did you say, what family is it?
They are in the lily family.
They are in the lily family. Okay.
It would be a bulb.
Yes. Okay. They are.
And I'll have to shake the soil off of one of the potted ones and see what they look like.
Okay.
I don't imagine that they're, as layered like your typical lily bulb, but being in the lily family, technically it should be a bulb with the leaf tissue being the storage organ for the plant.
And then, so the Mount Tamalpais and then up into Oregon, but are they along the Sierra? They're not in the Sierra foothills, are they? Or are they in the intercoastal?
Yeah, they're going to be in the coastal ranges.
Okay. Yeah.
Nothing out on the east side of the valley on these guys.
Okay. That one's, I need to look that one up. I might have seen it. It just not be aware, but it also sounds like it doesn't have it's got a fairly broad distribution, but I'm not along the coastal, like the intercoastal much these days.
Yeah, and it does have a pretty broad distribution, but it's never really very widespread. It's these little pockets and patches here and there.
Yeah. Well, it'd be fun to come across it. It's always fun when you just see new plants. I mean, that you haven't seen before. It's like, yay. That's
yeah. It's a neat one.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4. Remember, these aren't
4,
in any order.
I love Dudleyas.
Oh, okay.
I mean, everybody loves Dudleyas. They're really cute. They're one of our California native succulents. They're kind of our California version of an Echeveria. A lot of our gardening listeners will recognize the Echeverias. My favorite among these is Dudleya simosa. It's a really widespread species found on rocky slopes and river canyons from Tehama County all the way south into northern San Diego County. And they're a really variable species. There are several subspecies, and there's some really neat dwarf varieties in Southern California found on like Figueroa Mountain and Mount Baldy. Both have Dudleya simosa pumila, which is a really compact growing variety that has really bright red flowers. Typically, the flowers range from sort of lemony yellow to orange, but there are a few populations that just have these deep rusty reds or these true bloody red flowers, which are really showy.
And this one was, most of the Dudleyas, and I'm hoping it's stopped. I'm hoping like the craze for them has stopped, but it was a highly poached plant genus, the deadliest?
Yeah, that was definitely an issue. And it seems like a lot of them were actually getting exported to Korea for
Okay.
the specialty succulent
Mm-hmm.
trade there. And most of those were the coastal species. I think Dudleya farinosa was the one that was
Yeah.
targeted most heavily for poaching.
They're not, as far as a succulent, I would say they're, and I don't know this particular species, but having grown various ones, and when we got the poached ones, they were the coastal ones, and here we are trying to grow them in the Central Valley. And even though it's a succulent, it's different growing conditions. I would say we have some species, but some of them do just rot out on us. Death does occur. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge, especially in the valley where some supplemental summer irrigation is helpful to get them through the heat, and balancing that with not rotting them out can definitely be a challenge. But they do grow pretty well in containers as long as it's a really well crocked soil. And then they will actually do pretty well in the ground, especially if you have sort of like a little rock wall that they can get tucked into where the moisture will drain away pretty quickly. I live here in the Sierra Nevada foothills in Placerville, and they're native to the river canyons in my area, and I've actually had really good luck planting them in the ground as long as they're on a little bit of a slope and get pretty decent drainage. And then I do have a friend who gardens in Sacramento that has had good luck with them in the ground. But again, on above a little rock wall, or in like a rock or crevice garden where you can have really fast draining soil.
Yeah. Yeah. I think our problem is some of them that we were growing in pots and then they got winter rain. And so pots, succulents, for the most part, winter rain, not good. But yeah, in crevices, raised, amended soil, I could see how they'd be much happier than in a pot.
And on that too, I mean, being a California native, they do have to deal with winter rain. So compared to some of the other succulent species, including echeverias, which tend to get more monsoonal rains than these winter rains, they are a little bit more adaptable to our natural cycle. But that's also something to look out for. I've had issues in some of my containers where I start watering them in summer like I do some of my other succulents, and they can be very finicky about that, especially some of the desert species are very sensitive to summer irrigation and just need to be really careful with that.
Yeah, it all comes down to drainage. So proper timing of water, obviously, but then also drainage. Okay, you ready to move on to the
Yeah, I'm ready to move
Okay.
on.
Okay. Where are we at? Number 5?
We're at number 5.
Already,
and
okay.
we're at California cobra lily.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's hard to beat. It's really unique plant. It is our California native pitcher plant. So a lot of people know the Sarracenias from the East Coast. They're pretty popular in the carnivorous plant trade and pretty widely available. The Darlingtonia is our California and Southern Oregon version of that. They're in the same family. And the flowers are somewhat similar, definitely a little bit daintier than your kind of chunky Sarracenia flower. And then the pitchers are definitely unique, where your Sarracenia have that sort of open tube with that sort of flap of a lid on top. The Darlingtonia, the hood fully surrounds the top of the plant, and it kind of looks like it has a a helmet with these little with a cobra tongue sticking out, and then just behind that tongue is the entry to the pitcher, which points straight down as opposed to up. So the covering of the pitcher keeps the rain out in the winter months, and then insects have to climb or fly up through the little hole at the entry. They have fenestrations or windows at the very top of the pitcher, which allow light to come through, and the insects will see that light coming through and fly up into that little hole to get to the light, and then they get trapped and end up down in the pitcher itself.
It's so cool. It's just so happens that was the plant that got posted on the conservatory's Instagram today. I think Ryan did that. So good timing.
Awesome. Yeah, super cool plant. These guys are mostly in Northern California. There's a couple populations in the Northern Sierra Nevadas, some in the Trinities, and then I think the bulk of the distribution is in the Klamath Ranges in Northern California up into Oregon. And most of the pitchers are pretty much pure green, but there are a few populations that have these pure deep burgundy pitchers, which are just spectacular. And then a few populations with a little bit more of a blend of the green and red, or sort of a coppery color, which are really gorgeous too. These guys are much more finicky than Sarracenia in cultivation. They definitely can be grown, probably best in containers with a mix of sort of a rocky soil with some sphagnum moss mixed in. I've had pretty decent luck with them, but they're finicky. I've had well-established patches going in containers, and then one year they just decide that they're not doing it anymore. I would say one of the tricks is keeping the roots cool. So regular irrigation and something where it's good to have them on a timer, and in the heat of summer, have that water click on during the heat of the day so it can cool the roots down. One of my friends has actually been fairly successful in Sacramento, and he has a little hose end timer hooked up that comes on 4 times a day for about 10 minutes each time. And he's, I think, on his 3rd or 4th year with this plant, and seems to be pretty happy.
That's dedication. Yeah, they are. I mean, we have hundreds of Sarracenias growing outside, but our Darlingtonia is growing in our cool room for the reason that it likes its roots a little bit cooler. But same thing is, we would have them and they would just die. And I don't know if it's just like a lot of plants that you don't realize that they're stressed. And then one thing just sets them off and they die. But it's fun. I mean, I think we're going on 2 years with this one. Yeah, so we'll see. Well,
best of luck with that. And they can be grown outdoors too. A lot of, I know Peter, who started California Carnivores, always used to say that they like weather, and that they're one of those plants that if you just keep them inside in greenhouse conditions where they don't get that seasonal dormancy, they just start to peter out over time.
It's possible. I mean, we may have to make that decision.
Yeah, maybe worth trying one outside, but yeah, water it often. And they also are really finicky about hard, heavy water, so it needs to be really clean water. I'm fortunate enough that our tap water's pretty decent, but on UC Davis is still on well water, I believe.
Yes, Davis water, no go. We have DI Nice water that we water all of our carnivores with, so
Yep.
Reverse osmosis, deionized, but yeah, Davis tap water, no.
Yeah, that would be the nail in the coffin pretty
Yes.
quick. But
Yes.
yeah, if you are going to try one outside, maybe, just let that DI just slowly drip over the pot throughout the day, or flush it through a few times a day with nice cool water to keep those roots happy.
Yeah, that would, okay, we'll have to set something up, because that's interesting to hear that you had it, a big section and it just died out. Is it one of the, did it hit the sides and then die? Because I'm just wondering if, I mean, obviously you probably didn't allow it to outgrow its pot, right? I'm just wondering if it's the centers, the ones start dying out. I don't know, I'm just thinking through my head now.
I have my theories. It seemed to, the pictures kind of start to look rough by the end of summer anyway. And this year, the plant looked a little bit rougher by the end of summer, and I didn't think a whole lot about it. And then that winter, I went to repot it because it was forming a pretty sizable clump with lots of active eyes or growing points on the plant. It was filling out the pot pretty well. So I was moving it to a larger pot, and the whole thing just sort of fell apart on me. So I have two theories. One of them is that I wasn't keeping up with watering at the appropriate time of day, and that it just got too hot. It was a pretty hot summer that year. So the thing may have just cooked. My other theory is that I may have brought in a Sarracenia plant that may have had a Sarracenia root weevil, I believe is the name of the pest, and it may have gotten into my Darlingtonia plant. So one of the two, I will never know for sure, but I didn't give up. I've got a new one, and and it's hasn't caught up to that old spectacular clump that I had, but it'll get there eventually, fingers crossed.
Cool. Yeah, it's a fun one. People like it because it is, it lives up to its name. So, all right, moving on. Number 6 now?
Number 6? Okay. Number 6. I'm going to go to Pectiantia breweri, or brewer's mitrewort.
Okay.
You familiar with that one?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, everyone listening probably knows the heucheras. So it's in the same family, the Saxifragiaceae family, and the foliage is very similar. These little ruffled, sort of heart-shaped leaves. These ones, the foliage is kind of a plain green. They don't have any of the cool splotching or cool colors a lot of times we see in the heucheras, but the flowers are super cool. This is one of those plants that you kind of got to get down on your hands and knees, and it helps to have a little jeweler's loupe or a magnifying glass to truly appreciate it. But it gets these 6-inch tall spikes of some of the most intricate flowers you will ever see. It's like a little cup with 5 like old school TV antennas.
Okay.
With all the like, so the central vein with these little filaments coming off of each side. So it looks like this cup with these 5 antennas sort of spilling out of it. And then when they start to set seed, these cups fill up with these glossy black seeds, like a little green cup full of these glossy little eggs.
So it's a small plant, but it sends up a relatively large flower stalk compared to its...
No, 6 inches.
6 inches. I mean, compared to how big is the plant itself, would you say?
The leaves are probably about a inch across, and they'll spread to form a nice clump. There'll be a nice ground cover of them. But then the flowers themselves are probably less than half a centimeter across. So you really gotta gotta get in there to really appreciate that intricate texture.
And what's the distribution of this?
So these are throughout the Sierra Nevada, typically higher elevations, and then a lot of times wet spots, kind of boggy stream edges or drainages, and oftentimes in the understory. But yeah, if you see a patch of something that kind of looks like a little boring heuchera, take a closer look, and you might see these really intricate flowers.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe I've seen it, but I missed the flower season, and I just thought, meh.
And even if they're blooming, it's an easy one to just walk right by. If you're not really getting in there, you don't notice them.
Yeah.
I actually one of the regular hikes I do up near Carson Pass has a nice patch of them that I probably walked by for years before I actually got down and noticed these really, really special flowers on the plant.
Yeah, most of my botanizing is in conjunction with backpacking, where we're trying to set so many miles, and my head's on a swivel, and I'm just constantly like looking. But if it's small, and especially if it's more in a not an area that you're going to see a lot of, a lot of the trails around a swampy area. So, yeah, I could take some time to botanize, but I don't think my hiking partner would appreciate that too much.
That is a challenge. I sympathize.
Yeah. But I mean, when I see a cool plant, trust me, it stops, and we take a look, and we both are plant people, me more so. But yeah, okay. So up in that area, and what was the name of it again?
Pectiantia breweri, or brewer's mitrewort, and. Okay. When you're backpacking, it's not the best time to get down on your hands and knees in a boggy area and then stand back up with your pack.
No. Especially if you've gone through an area of blowdowns where you're already trying to scramble under and over and under and over. You're like, no. But I'll have to keep my eye open. I'll have to get maybe some coordinates from you. Next time I'm going somewhere, I'm like, hey, what should I be looking out for? We did that. We, down in, oh my gosh, where was it? Southern California area. There was a Louisiana that there was a cluster, and we came across it, and it was just beautiful. But it was like white flowers, and I would have blended in completely, but we were looking for it. So that was nice. So.
Oh, that's another favorite plant that didn't make it on this list.
Yes.
But the Luises are fabulous, and yeah, they're one that especially if you don't catch them when they're blooming, you may not see much of anything at all.
Nope. Yeah, that made me come back, and we've always had the cotyledon species. Is that it? The sort of the one that's most on the market. Is that the one?
Luisia cotyledon.
Yeah. But then I'm like, maybe we should try growing more of them. But I have a feeling a lot of them are on the ones that are on that serpentine, very specific rocky, certain kind of rocks. I'm like, what am I getting myself into? That's just set up for failure.
It's definitely worth a try. I know Luisia rediviva is one of those serpentine endemics, and
we had that for a bit.
They're actually somewhat available in the nursery trade, and as long as you don't keep them too sopping wet in the summer months, they're fairly tolerant. I've got a few in pots and a couple in the ground that have done pretty well.
Yeah, if you come across any of the strange ones that aren't commonly available, let me know, because that'd be fun to try growing those. But that was number 6, right?
That was number 6.
Okay, number 7. Okay.
Number 7, moving on to a fern.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if there was going to be a fern.
Yeah, and not a big showy one. I mean, I like the western chain fern. The sword ferns are fun, but my favorite ferns are the ones that grow in the little cracks and the rocky outcroppings that you're just wondering, why is a fern growing in this horrible spot? My current favorite is Myriopteris covellii, or Koval's lip fern.
Hmm.
It has the coolest texture. It's almost like these little green fuzzy beads have all been
Oh,
fused together into a little frond. The top side is a little less fuzzy, and then you look underneath and it's just completely hairy, almost white, with just these, bits of the sort of orangish brown
hmm.
sore sticking through under the fur. But yeah, they grow on rock outcrops throughout a lot of California's foothills and mountains. Sort of medium elevations, I would say, probably starting around a few hundred feet up to a couple thousand feet in elevation range. Um, they're most common in Southern California
Okay.
mountains, but there are scattered populations throughout Sierra Nevada foothills and the Coast Ranges both. But just an awesome texture. And another plant that's pretty hard to track down in
Yeah.
the nursery trade, but they are becoming somewhat available from some of the specialty growers. Tilden Botanic Garden has been growing a lot of native ferns from spores and
Oh, good
offering
to know.
a smattering of them at their seasonal plant sales. And they're actually fairly forgiving in horticulture as long as you give them a really well drained soil.
Hmm.
And a lot of these more xeric ferns will handle going completely dormant in the summer, but it's a slippery slope. If you keep them watered, you can keep them evergreen and keep them looking good pretty much year round. But if they decide that they want to go dormant, you better stop watering them and sort of make sure they're in a shadier, cooler spot, because if they get water once they start to go dormant, they'll check out pretty
Oh,
quickly.
wow. Okay. But yeah, these are the ones that when you're sea hiking in the rock crevices and they look like they're dying because usually most people see them in the summertime, right? So they sort of just sort of shrivel up. Is that correct?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of times
Okay.
they'll shrivel up
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much look like they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some higher elevation species of Myriopteris that you'll see up in the high alpine areas. And the texture is pretty similar. The fronds are a little bit smaller. Not quite. I mean, not that I think they're showy, but I don't think your typical gardener would be like, oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
an amazing showy plant. But really cool in small mixed containers or rock gardens, and just a awesome texture.
Cool. No, I have to look that one up. I mean, I'm sure I've seen them because I've seen the ferns, but I just probably haven't ID'd them, and maybe I haven't looked at them close enough to see the texture. Um, Once again, I've gone hiking with people who are, when you go out on a botany trip, or I have friends who are looking for plants and, reptiles, you walk 5 feet every hour because they're looking at everything. So that's when you're forced to look at things all the details, but beauty's in the details a lot of times.
Yes, botany
Yes.
walks are measured in feet. Hiking is
Yes.
measured in miles.
Correct. Yes. Okay. That was number 7. So we're moving on to 8.
Yeah, I've mostly been talking about sort of perennial
Mm-hmm.
stuff and the little succulent. So I'm gonna round it out with a shrub, a conifer, and a broadleafed tree for
Okay.
my final 3
All
here.
right.
The flannel bush, but
Ah.
not just the regular
Okay.
one. The Pine Hill flannel bush is a really cool plant, Fremontodendron decumbens. A lot of people know the typical flannel bush, which is a pretty big shrub. I mean, they'll get 15
Mm-hmm.
plus feet pretty
Mm-hmm.
easily. Fremontodendron decumbens is a rare species in California. It's got a population center on Pine Hill in El Dorado County, with a couple scattered populations in Nevada, Placer, and Yuba counties. And just a couple years ago, they found another population up near Whiskeytown Lake. And these are growing on gabbro soils, which have a lot of the same chemical properties that you'll find in serpentine soils. Lots of iron, and then magnesium, nickel, chromium, some heavy metals that are really rough on a lot of plant species. But these have adapted to those unique soil conditions and are pretty much just found on these few pockets of these gabbro soils throughout California. The plant is typically more of a ground cover than a bush, hence the decumbens name. A lot of the plants you'll see truly only grow to a few inches tall, but will eventually get 8, 10, 12, 15 feet across.
Wow.
The leaves are very similar to your typical flannel bush, but a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit more rounded in terms of the lobing. And the flowers are a true orange, almost a reddish orange, instead of the more yellow orange that you see in the typical flannel bush. And this is one where I always had this sort of, vision that rare plants are going to be in these faraway places, high mountains, or these, secluded river canyons. And this is right smack dab on the border of Cameron Park in the foothills. So it just goes to show you that, I mean, sometimes these true treasures of plants may be found in, some of the most unsuspecting places, just really hot, dry summers and this horrible soil. And here's this really spectacular, unique plant. A few of the larger plants will, for some reason, decide to grow up a little bit and will get 3 or 4 feet tall. But a lot of them just stay as ground covers. And really cool plant, and is actually pretty adaptable to growing in the garden. It's very uncommon in the garden trade, but there are a few people growing them here and there. And if you see one available, snatch one up, because it's worthwhile.
I wonder how different it would look in, say, a different type of soil, because you wonder sometimes if the soil is what pushes the growth habit sometimes, along with, of course, genetics.
So I've wondered about that too. I've seen them in nursery containers for sale. And at that point, they really do, in terms of growth form, look more like your typical flannel bush. There'll be a single straight upright stalk. But they're planted in the Tilden Botanic Garden in fairly regular soil, in a much more hospitable, cooler, more temperate climate than the hot foothills where they're found naturally. And most of the plants there are the same true dense ground cover. A couple of them have that sort of intermediate height where they start to grow up and then start to spread out. So I really wonder if it's something where maybe deer pruning as a young plant forces them into that really low growth form. But yeah, it's a good question. I have one in a container, and it really wanted to just go up. So I actually sort of bent it over, sort of pseudo bonsai'd it, and it seems to be sticking with that more or less. But But yeah, hard to say in terms of
Okay.
growth form
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, most of the time it doesn't change them that much. I mean, it's, yeah. Okay. So number 9.
Number 9 is I love blue oaks. They're
Mm.
great. They're really cool. I grew up in Blue Oak Woodland out on the west side of the valley. So maybe I'm a little bit biased being a tree that I grew up with. But they have great foliage, these small, leathery, bluish green leaves. When the leaves first come out in spring, they have this kind of fuzzy white covering on them. So they kind of like glow with this blue and white color. And they're very long-lived trees, and old trees make this awesome broad spreading crown that droops down to the ground, kind of just like a big umbrella of an oak tree. Very slow growing species. Typically a couple inches per year is a pretty good growth rate for a blue oak. They start to mature at about 90 years old when they're first starting to make their first acorns.
Crazy.
And are maybe in, the 20-foot range at that point and only a few feet across. So when you see these big old blue oaks, they truly have centuries of growth under their belts. I would say about on average about 2 millimeters per year of increase in trunk diameter. So 7-inch diameter trees, about 100 years old. When you get up to 16 inches or so, you're probably in the 200 plus year range. And, anything that's getting close to 3 feet across is probably at least 500 years
That's
old.
crazy. Yeah, they are slow grown. We have some at work, and they've actually reached we irrigate them more than they would normally get, so I'm sure that pushes them to slightly faster growth than being out in habitat.
Yeah, definitely in garden conditions, you can force that growth a little bit. But yeah, they're one of California's most drought tolerant oak species. And yeah, there's needs to be more research, but there's it's looking like in some areas of California, our hotter, drier climate may be not killing off mature trees, but they're seeing in some places that there aren't many seedlings germinating. In some areas, it's not an issue at all, but yeah, definitely a tree that we need to keep our eyes on in terms of keeping up with climate change.
Yeah, no, they are beautiful trees, and really I mean, they're big. They won't get big for a while. So I think that's why people sort of tend not to plant them, because it is an oak, but they do have a very gangly growth for quite a while, which some people I think don't like. But if you have the space, I think they planted along the bike path in Davis. So out in the country, yeah, they got rid of the walnuts that were there, and I think they planted a whole bunch of blue oak, which is nice.
A good tree to plant for your grandchildren. If you want an oak to look like something in your lifetime, a valley oak's a much better option.
Yeah. No. Okay. So there you got a tree there. Now, drum roll. Of course, it's not in any order, but it is your last one.
So yeah, and I started with, my sort of number one instead of building up to it. I was just like, here we go. This is the greatest. But I did want to throw a conifer in there too, and the California nutmeg.
Okay.
Yeah, Torreya californica, Sierra Nevada foothills, pretty broad range. but another one of those plants that you never see a whole lot of them.
Mm-mm.
There's sort of these little pockets of them here and there. They tend to be in cool, moist canyons. And to me, if you're out hiking and you're in like a Doug fir forest and you're seeing all these Doug firs, which are pretty. But if you see one that just looks like really robust and really glossy and a little bit bigger foliage, could be a Torreya.
Okay.
They just have this gorgeous glossy foliage. Like I said, they kind of look like just like a really happy, robust Doug fir. You can tell for sure if you go up and touch the foliage. They're very sharp tips, where your firs tend to be a little bit softer. I've heard that the needles have actually been used for tattoo needles.
Interesting.
So that speaks to
That
how
speaks.
sharp they are.
Mm-hmm. What's the bark like on them? I'm trying to picture the bark.
The bark isn't super descript.
Yeah.
How to describe it?
Is it more like plating or ribbing or I don't know. I can't picture it.
I would say kind of more a vertical pleatings.
Okay. Sorry.
A little bit scaly.
Okay.
I would say it almost kind of looks like oak bark, actually.
Okay.
You have these sort of ridges of bark running vertically. And then, kind of has a little bit of a shaggy weeping look on the lower branches. And then kind of your typical Christmas tree shape overall. If someone wants to see one in person, the Forest Service Arboretum up in Camino has a gorgeous specimen planted in their parking lot. They're open on weekdays, kind of regular business hours, but kind of a cool arboretum with a lot of conifer species from all over the world, but right in the parking lot is a really beautiful California nutmeg. And then another kind of cool little tidbit, neat fact is that it's a dioecious tree. So you have separate male and female plants. And the male cones are pretty boring, just these small, oval shaped pollen producing guys, not too dissimilar from what you'd see on a pine tree. But the female plant makes these big fleshy fruits with a single large seed inside them. Where the name comes from, they kind of look like a culinary nutmeg, even though they're not related to them. But really kind of a unique conifer, a little bit different than a lot of the cone-bearing conifers. It's in the same family as yews, which have those, bright red berries with open, technically an aril, with the seed tucked down inside. And on the nutmeg, the seed's fully encased in the fruit. You don't have that open end, but definitely different than our cones that we see in our redwoods.
And that would definitely
pines.
set them apart if you see them. If you see them fruiting, then you definitely know. If you can't tell based on the foliage. So
if the spiny foliage didn't tip you off.
That's
big,
true.
Fleshy fruits.
I saw the Pacific yew backpacking up in Washington. So that was fun to see. I didn't see that before. So that was another one where it's like, are you, aren't you? Until then you see the fruit. Then you're like, okay, yeah. Because the foliage does look very similar to a lot of the conifers up there. So that was 10.
We did it.
Wow, we did it. And now, the California Native Plant Society, don't they have a really good like database online with pictures? Is that right? Is it Cal? What's it?
Yeah, we've got a few great resources online. So Calscape is our great gardening resource.
Okay.
Has a great database of a huge number of not just wild type species, but also garden cultivars. So yeah, anyone interested in native gardening should definitely check out Calscape. You can punch in your address or zip code and it will spit out a list of plants that are suitable for your area. Also has a great database of native plant nurseries and nurseries that carry native plants. And if you are also has a cool feature where you can log in and start to build your own plant list. And then it can help direct you to nurseries that might carry the plants that you're interested in. So lots of great resources there. We also have our inventory of rare plants, which has a database of all the California rare plant ranked species. You can go in and search by county or USGS quad and see what rare plants are in your neck of the woods. And like I said before, I used to have this, vision that all the really cool rare plants were tucked in these remote areas. And there are cool rare plants everywhere in California. Everyone's got something neat in their backyard.
Cool. I will just end by giving my favorite. I won't go into my favorites, but I saw the Sky Pilot for the first time this past year, backpacking up in the Eastern Sierras. So above 10,000 feet, I think the plants those are like my favorite flowers up there. All the ones that are above 10,000 feet. Cause I'm like, man, if you could look this pretty up high, it's a lot. So that's a really pretty. It looks like a fake flower. I always like the flowers that look fake, but it's Polymonium, and I forget the species. I should know it, but it goes by Sky Pilot because I think just because it's up high.
Well, I would have to look up the species too, but that is very worthy of being a favorite. And I've only seen them post flower, and it is on the bucket list to get up there when they're actually blooming. Do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, these little tiny foliage coming out of a crack in a rock with these ungodly big showy flowers coming out of this teeny tiny plant.
And I think there were some primroses too. They were in competition with them up there. I mean, as far as pretty, not competition, because trust me, they're few and spaced out. But yeah, just the hot pink of the primrose, and then this beautiful blue of this. And I'm like, this is just coming out of these granite faces, and the bloom period and the growth period is just so short. But they're there, so just beauty and just the amazement of them growing. I'm like, okay, you'll be my favorite flower for now until a new favorite comes along. But this is fun. You introduced me to a few new plants, and it's interesting to talk to someone who's now just totally immersed in the native plant world, because I'm out of it. Not that I was ever fully in it, but when I was in school, that was where you did a lot, and I haven't been in just fully immersed in the native plant area. So that's fun. That was a good, diverse group of plants.
Yeah, and anyone getting interested in being more immersed in native plants, CNPS has 35 chapters across the state, including one in Baja California. So yeah, look up your local chapter, get involved, and get immersed in native plants.
Yeah, because you guys are always holding talks that are open to the public, right?
Yep, the local chapter has great talks. We have our Naturehood webinar series monthly online on great selection of rare plant or native plant topics. So yeah, check us out.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And until next time, happy gardening.